Help, I'm a Fish is a Danish hand-drawn animated feature film. It follows a boy called Fly, his sister Stella, and their cousin Chuck. They meet an eccentric marine biologist called Professor McCrill and end up drinking his new formula for a potion that turns humans into fish. These three kids must find the antidote in less than 48 hours or they'll remain fish forever. Unfortunately, the antidote has landed in the hands of a hyper-intelligent fish called Joe, who has used the antidote to evolve ocean life into creatures with human intelligence and has developed a cult-like society using his fishy followers. Before I express my commentary on this film, I must state that I've only seen this movie in its English dub format, so I'm not aware of what the quality of the original Danish dub is like. This review is only relevant to the English dub. Now, I watched this film many times as a child, and I watched it many times as a teenager. I held a high opinion of it at a young age, but I've grown up now, and as an adult, I have a different perspective on the films that I watch, including children's movies. So, what does the 22-year-old Jambareeqi think of this film? Well, I have to say that it isn't that impressive, but it's also not that bad. There are some worthy qualities, but there are also some notable flaws. While the film does a good job setting up its concept and main plot, I believe that its middle act is severely weak. Why? Well, I just find it boring due to the lack of tension, drama, or conflict. There's a part in the film where the kids have to find some ingredients to make their own antidote. Instead of making this into an exciting adventure separated into long and difficult set pieces, it's instead cut down to a minute-long montage, and only one ingredient becomes a major scene. What happens in this montage could have potentially been executed as a load of exciting conflicts that could have taken up a majority of the story, but what we get instead is a sort of mini music video. To me, the middle act just doesn't have enough going for it. There's nothing memorable or exciting happening. It's made up of rushed conflicts and unconstructive bickering, and it chooses some pointless moments to be the highlighted focus at times. In one scene, the villain has this dragged out banter with his henchmen, where he doesn't know how to punish them for their insolence. It goes on and on and on and on. It gets to a point where it begins to make no sense and gets boring. So many scenes are like this, and they go on for so long that they become either redundant or irrelevant. The film picks some silly moments to have its much longer scenes, and while parts that could have been possibly exciting, get little or no attention. However, I do like when the film turns to scenes where we see how the kids' parents are coping. These scenes are surprisingly good as we see how much they're filled with panic and fear. In fact, there's even a really stirring moment where Chuck's mother feels guilty for the kid's disappearance. The film does also take the time to develop its characters, which is a surprising achievement considering what little goes on throughout the middle part of the movie. In addition, the film's finale is where the conflictive drama really takes place. It's an exciting and thrilling climax that helps the pace step up and the tension rise. It's a shame that the rest of the film can't be this enjoyable. I would say that the ending has the most emotional drama as we see Chuck trying to revive Fly, but it loses its impact after we realise that Fly is fine and Chuck was actually trying to restore a crudely made model of a fish. Not only is this a disappointing cop-out, but it's also hard to believe that anyone could be stupid enough to be convinced that this raggedy model is a dying fish. Now, I'm not saying that Fly had to die in order to make it emotionally effective as an ending, but there could have been a purpose to the drama if what Chuck was trying to save was Fly. Let's take a closer look at the characters. Fly is a very cocky and reckless boy, but I can't deny that he's adaptable, selfless, and confident. He's actually likable due to his relentless will, concern for others, and strong ambition. He also enjoys taking the time to appreciate the ocean, which reflects his sensitive nature. His character flaw is that he doesn't think things through and doesn't realize the consequences of his actions. Towards the finale, he does realize his own mortality when he gets injured. This takes away his pride and confidence, so he spends a lot of the finale being mopey. However, the injury does inspire him to rely on his cunning logic rather than his charismatic energy in his final confrontation with Joe. Chuck is your typical smart kid trope, and this character does bug me. I mean, he has unlimited academic knowledge, and this makes him come across as annoyingly pretentious. It doesn't help that he is over-cynical, stuck-up, and whiny for most of the film. However, during the final climax, he does take control and uses his intelligence wisely when Fly becomes injured and loses his will to lead everyone. In fact, he actually develops into a brave, courageous, and practical thinking kid. So all he really needed was the chance to become a leader to be really defined. This newfound courage even carries on when he's returned to his human form, as we see him playfully climbing. Stella is cute without being obnoxious and is actually sometimes funny. She also has a sweet and touching friendship with a seahorse that fuels some emotionally driven scenes. Sure, she doesn't get as much development as her brother or cousin, but she's a tolerable and likable character. Joe is a suave, sophisticated and cunning villain with a sociopathic charm. What makes him interesting? Well, unlike other megalomaniac villains, Joe's character drive is to gain intelligence. I think that's a fresh take on a villain that's trying to dominate and control a large-scale area. He craves intelligence in order to manipulate other fish and feel superior. He sees intelligence as power. This is kind of unique for a villain's outlook. This obsession gets the best of him when his over-reliance on the antidote transforms him into a human being and he drowns. That's pretty haunting and grim for a villain's death in a kids' movie, and I love when a family-friendly film risks being dark. However, despite this drive, he spends most of the movie not doing or saying anything relatively interesting. Professor McCrill is eccentric and charismatic, but he's also kind of clumsy. Despite having a PhD, he isn't smart enough to keep an eye on the kids when they visit his lab, which happens to have dangerous potions, mind you. However, this is what makes him human. Even the most intelligent and practical thinking people can let their excitement get the best of them and lose their common sense at times. Now, what about the hand-drawn animation? I think it's bloody brilliant. There's so much fluid character movement, with an array of expressive emotions. While the humans have plain-looking designs, they're at least well-drawn and decent to look at. It's Joe's design that I love the most. He looks like a nightmarish clown and is bound to frighten younger audiences. I have to say, it's the background design for Joe's society that stands out the most in terms of concept art. It's a dystopian, Fatry-esque world that has a fantastic stylized appearance. The voice acting from the children playing Stella and Fly is surprisingly well performed, considering these are child actors. They don't underact and they don't overact. They deliver their lines with ease and strength. Aaron Paul is decent as Chuck. He gives him a typical nerdy squeaky voice, it doesn't sound too shrill, and he does a good effort in terms of acting. Ex-Monty Python member Terry Jones shines as Professor McCrill, giving him a wacky and strong voice. I really think that Jones has the skills to provide more voiceover roles, actually. It's Alan Rickman who steals the film as Joe, though, giving him this sinister and soft-spoken voice that sounds spine-tingling. The film score has a great sense of scale that matches the epic-sized ocean surrounding our characters, but it does have a habit of making a musical noise that I can't stand. The sparkle. I really don't like when a score uses this sound. It sounds like forced whimsy. The soundtrack features some passable little pop songs. They're cute, they play in the background now and again, and there's a beautiful song called Ocean Love that plays during the opening credits. Plus, who can forget the film's theme? It's hell of a catchy Europop tune that's become what a majority of people remember the most about this film. There are two musical numbers in the film. One is called Fishtastic, that's sung by the Professor. It's a fun and funky track that's elevated by the personality glistening from Terry Jones' vocals. Then there's Intelligence. Wow. Just wow. This has to be one of my favourite villain songs ever. It has a wonderful use of instruments and choir, a hypnotising trip-hop style rhythm, and creepy vocals from Alan Rickman. To conclude, Help I'm a Fish seems to have a weak middle act in its story, plus the execution of many scenes are either painfully drawn out or disappointingly short, plus some of the use of CGI looks a bit poor at times, but it has some really good character development for its leads, top-notch hand-drawn animation, a thrilling finale, plus some interesting designs. Despite a flawed narrative and a few other problems, I'd have to say that it's a decent effort for what it is. I give it 3 underwater stars out of 5.